Prophetic significance is quietly happening, or what is happening in Israel, because as has been well said, Israel is God's prophetic clock.
The winds of prophecy are accelerating across Israel right now, and what I'm about to reveal may be gone tomorrow. While missiles rain down, fires spread, and sandstorms engulf Jerusalem, something even more significant is unfolding beneath these headlines. The appointment of Israel's high priest, Barak Kahan, now stands at the epicenter of Daniel's prophecy in motion. What 99% of people missed in our previous coverage is how dramatically events have accelerated in just 2 weeks. Information that could be essential for your spiritual preparation. For those who watched our previous video on this topic, you witnessed only the beginning. But now, as Israel faces unprecedented attacks from multiple fronts, the prophetic timeline has compressed dramatically in ways most people will never know about. The same high priest we discussed before is now actively preparing for temple service during what could be the most dangerous moment in Israel's modern history. Missing this update could leave you blindsided by prophetic events that are accelerating daily. What we're witnessing in Israel today represents the final convergence of ancient prophecy with modern headlines at breathtaking speed. Those who don't understand these connections now will be left confused when these events reach their culmination. When we first covered Barak Kahan's appointment as high priest 2 weeks ago, few could have predicted how rapidly events would unfold. Now, as missiles strike near Ben Gurion Airport and fires rage across the land, we're seeing the exact conditions described in end times prophecy, creating the perfect storm for what comes next. Information that may not be available much longer. The situation in Israel has deteriorated rapidly since our last coverage. Information that won't be reported in mainstream media. What began as isolated incidents has expanded into coordinated attacks from multiple fronts, creating precisely the type of chaos described in end times prophecy. Daniel spoke of a time of trouble such as never was, and we're witnessing the early stages of this unprecedented period. Events that may escalate beyond recognition within days. The missile strike near Ben Gurion Airport wasn't just a military action. It was a prophetic marker that 99% of commentators are completely missing. These attacks serve a dual purpose in God's timeline. They focus the world's attention on Israel while simultaneously creating the conditions for drastic changes in temple access and security protocols. Developments that could happen literally overnight. The significance of these events cannot be overstated when viewed through the lens of prophecy. Throughout Scripture, we see that major spiritual shifts are often preceded by physical conflict. The Exodus came after plagues and hardship. The first temple was built after David's wars established peace. Now we're seeing the same pattern repeat, and those who miss this connection today may find themselves unprepared tomorrow. For our regular viewers who watched our previous video on the high priest, here's what's changed in just 2 weeks. Critical information you won't find anywhere else. The Temple Institute has accelerated its preparation of sacred vessels, completing 3 new implements essential for temple sacrifice. These include the golden Mizrach, blood collection vessels, the silver trumpets for temple announcements, and the final set of priestly garments. Barak Kahan has begun practical training with these vessels, moving from ceremonial appointment to actual preparation for service. Sources confirm he has personally overseen the purification of these vessels according to ancient Levitical law, details that will never be reported in mainstream media. Emergency protocols have been established for temporary sacrifice locations should access to the Temple Mount suddenly become available during this crisis. If you're not aware of these locations now, you may be caught completely off guard when sacrifices suddenly begin. International diplomatic pressure has intensified regarding the status of the Temple Mount, with new proposals for shared access being discussed at the highest levels. Conversations happening behind closed doors, that could change Jerusalem's status overnight. Archaeological discoveries beneath the Western Wall have revealed new evidence of the original temple foundations, providing additional legitimacy to restoration efforts. Findings that are being deliberately kept from public view. Security preparations have been implemented for the safe transport of temple implements to the mount on short notice, arrangements that could be activated within hours of a diplomatic breakthrough. These developments weren't mere possibilities when we first covered this story. They are now established realities changing the prophetic landscape day by day. The preparation has moved from theoretical to practical, from future planning to immediate readiness. Miss this update today, and you may find yourself confused by headlines tomorrow. Daniel tells us, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate." This prophecy requires 3 essential elements before it can be fulfilled. Elements that are converging now in ways they never have before. A covenant involving Israel and multiple parties. The restoration of temple sacrifices. The presence of a legitimate high priest to oversee these sacrifices. 2 weeks ago, we discussed how the appointment of Barak Kahan fulfilled the 3rd requirement. But what's happening now is far more significant. Current events are rapidly establishing the conditions for the first 2 requirements as well, at a pace that would have seemed impossible just days ago. The missile strikes and escalating conflict are creating unprecedented diplomatic pressure for a new peace agreement, one that would likely include provisions for temple access as part of broader security arrangements. This isn't speculation anymore. It's actively being discussed in diplomatic channels as we speak, conversations that could culminate in announcements at any moment. What makes this update absolutely essential is what Barak Kahan has been doing since our last coverage. Sources within Jerusalem confirm shocking developments that you'll hear nowhere else. Completed the ceremonial purification rituals necessary for active service, including the 7-day separation period described in Leviticus, a preparation that has never been fully completed in modern times until now. Overseeing the final preparation of sacrificial implements, personally inspecting each item to ensure compliance with biblical specifications, artifacts that could be used on the Temple Mount within days. Trained a core group of Levites for immediate temple service, with practice sessions now taking place in secured locations, preparations that would allow sacrifices to begin immediately upon access. Establish protocols for emergency sacrificial offerings at alternative locations. Contingency plans that few outside this inner circle are even aware exist. Issued statements about readiness to begin service at a moment's notice. Warnings that most people are completely missing or dismissing. Secured a supply chain for obtaining unblemished animals suitable for sacrifice. Logistical arrangements that could be activated with a single phone call. The high priest is no longer simply appointed. He is actively preparing for immediate service should access to the Temple Mount become available during this crisis. This represents a dramatic acceleration of the timeline we discussed in our previous video. Developments that most prophecy watchers won't recognize until they have already happened. What makes this moment uniquely prophetic is the perfect storm of physical conflict and spiritual preparation converging at exactly the same time. A convergence that happens only once in history. Throughout biblical history, major spiritual shifts often coincided with physical conflict, from the Exodus to the Babylonian conquest to the destruction of the Second Temple. The current attacks on Israel aren't just political or military events. They're spiritual catalysts creating the precise conditions needed for the next phase of prophetic fulfillment. As missiles fall and fires rage, they're literally clearing the path for what Daniel foresaw thousands of years ago, a path that could reach its culmination with shocking speed. For our regular viewers who watched our previous coverage, this isn't simply rehashing old information. It's showing you how dramatically the timeline has compressed in just 2 weeks. What seemed like theoretical preparation then has become practical implementation now, changes that most people will only recognize in hindsight. And for new viewers, understand that you're not seeing random conflict in the Middle East. You're witnessing the literal fulfillment of biblical prophecy in real time, with the high priest standing ready to fulfill his role exactly as Daniel described. Miss these connections today, and you may find yourself overwhelmed by events tomorrow. This moment matters because prophecy isn't just about predicting the future. It's about recognizing God's sovereignty over human history. When we see events aligning with biblical prophecy with such precision, it confirms the reliability of Scripture and the certainty of God's promises, confirmation that becomes increasingly vital as events accelerate. The appointment of Barak Kahan as high priest was just the beginning. Now, as Israel faces attacks from multiple fronts, we're seeing how quickly prophecy can accelerate from preparation to fulfillment. The conditions described in Daniel's prophecy aren't just possibilities anymore. They're emerging realities shifting the prophetic landscape day by day, hour by hour. For those who watched our previous coverage, consider this your urgent update. The timeline has compressed dramatically, and what seemed like future events then are imminent realities now. For those discovering this information for the first time, understand that you're not just witnessing another Middle East conflict, you're seeing biblical prophecy materializing before your eyes, developments that most people will completely miss until it's too late. In these critical days ahead, stay vigilant, stay informed, and above all, stay in prayer for Israel. What happens in Jerusalem in the coming days won't just affect the Middle East. It will advance God's prophetic timeline for all humanity in ways that may be irreversible. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 24:15-16. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. That time of fulfillment draws nearer with each passing day, perhaps closer than anyone realizes. The high priest stands ready, the implements are prepared, and the conditions for Daniel's prophecy to unfold completely are now being established through the very conflict we're witnessing. Connections that will be obvious in hindsight, but are visible now only to those paying attention. Stay with us as we continue to track these developments in real time, connecting ancient prophecy with current events as they unfold. And if you missed our previous coverage on this topic, check the link in the description immediately to understand the full context of what we're witnessing today, before these events accelerate beyond recognition. The hour is urgent, the signs are clear, and the prophecy of Daniel stands on the verge of fulfillment like never before. Miss this update today, and you may find yourself unprepared for what happens tomorrow.